Today we're talking about how blockchain can make supply chains more efficient. And I'm very pleased to welcome two guests who I hope will have a productive conversation with each other. Sukhi Jutla is the co-founder and COO of MarketOrders, a London-based online platform for the gold and diamond jewellery industry. MarketOrders released a white paper on the use of blockchain technology within supply chain processes last year. So welcome, Suki.
Hi, Charles. It's great to be here.
Thank you for doing this. And also, Stephan Nilsson is the founder and CEO of the Oslo-based enterprise blockchain platform UNISOT, which I always like to remember stands for Universal Source of Truth. Welcome, Stephan.
Thank you very much. Yes, and that's totally correct.
Well, now, Stephan describes himself as a blockchain evangelist, and Suki is very active in groups like the Mayor of London's Skills Business Partnership and many other outreach groups. So I hope we're going to hear some evangelism today, red-blooded evangelism. So thank you both very much for making time to do this.
You're listening to CoinGeek Conversations with Charles Miller.
So, Suki, let me start with you, if I may. You've been in the jewellery and diamond business for a while. What made you take an interest in the possibilities of blockchain in relation to the supply chain for that industry?
So the industry I operate in is really focused on trust and transparency. Or actually, I would say there's a lot of trust in this industry that's needed in order to buy high value products, but perhaps the transparency levels aren't quite there. And that's really because in our industry, we are dealing with very high value, precious products that are typically sourced from one area or one country, say, like a gold mine in Africa. And then that raw product is sent to another country where it's processed, and then it's moved to another destination where it's designed, and then it's moved on to another destination where it's eventually sold. So the products that are being moved across in my industry have many sort of third parties and middlemen. And so there's a lot of processing that's happening, but I don't feel that there's always that level of transparency. And I myself have had instances where I have ordered products from an international country such as Hong Kong or Singapore, but then when it reached the destination such as the UK, the products had actually been opened and some items had been swapped out for lower quality products. But then I didn't have anyone to go back to, and who was to blame for this? Because it was, the supply chain process wasn't as transparent as it could be. And so that's when I started to think about how blockchain could potentially be used in our industry to provide a greater level of transparency. And so that's where my sort of interest and journey started.
That's really interesting. Well, Stephan, what do you make of that? I know that UNISOT has started its work in relation to the fish supply chain, and this could hardly be more different, but are there possibilities that would transfer from your business to Suki's?
Yeah, absolutely. You say it's different, I say it's the same. We have an object that are moving across the supply chain, across different countries. A lot of fish is exported from Norway to the States, to the Asia and everywhere. So it's a lot of the same thing here, that we have to take care of a product that are moved around in the world. And today there is a lot of problems with doing that. And that's where this technology can help.
So would you say then that the fact that Suki's products are individually worth a lot more, perhaps, than a fish, does that make it better or worse as a case for your supply chain management?
I think that the price makes sense of the value, or the value of the product makes sense, because if it's too low value, it could be hard to make up for the cost. But anyway, with this blockchain technology that we are using, because it's so scalable and so low cost, with very low transaction fees, it doesn't really matter about the price. But of course, you have more incentive to put the system in if you have higher value product. And of course, it's much more economic to put like an RFID chip or some kind of lasering in some kind of ID that could be expensive to do and something like that. It's easier if the product has a higher value than just a small thing. But I used to compare like a salmon today has the same price as a barrel of oil. So it's rather big values in fish actually as well.
Right. Sorry, I don't mean to be rude about fish. I mean,
no, it's no problem.
But Suki, you've looked into this and you've actually published a white paper about the use of blockchain in your industry. How far have you got in terms of actually planning or implementing it?
So we've gone as far as creating tokens. So we have a token called the MarketOrders token. And the way we envision this is to have an ecosystem on our platform whereby our suppliers and our customers actually settle payments using the tokens. So the first sort of use case I saw was to use it as a way to settle payments and moving money across. Because again, with our industry, what we find is we really need to get the products quickly to our customers. And the biggest thing that holds us up is whenever we send payments internationally to suppliers in Hong Kong or Dubai or India, sometimes the payments can take up to 7 to 10 days, and it's really costly. And it's okay if you're doing it just one time. What we sort of see is a large proportion of the funds being moved across, we are having to pay quite a lot of transaction fees that can actually build up. So that was the first way really to settle, to have sort of a use case. And we're still looking into developing that, and some of our technology build sort of slowed down when the pandemic hit. We were just on the cusp of sort of launching this last year. And then the second way we're looking to use this is actually in similar to what Stephan's doing actually. Just can we actually use smart sensors or chips and actually embed a unique chip into every individual piece of jewelry, and then can we actually track the entire journey of that jewelry piece? And so that one, I was having some conversations with suppliers who actually produce these nano chips, and these are chips very similar to the ones you would find in your smartphone. And it's quite simple. You would just basically choose the parameters and variables that you want recorded. So basically, what data do you want being picked up? And then you would just encode that onto the smart chip and then put that into the jewelry. So I guess for us, the other bit really would be working with our suppliers to make sure that the chip is being inserted into the jewelry piece without destroying or damaging the look and feel of the item. So we're still at that stage, exploring options and actually looking at what's the best way. But having said that, blockchain, this entire field is moving super fast, and it's only recently I came across the concept of non-fungible tokens, which is the way I understand it is each token is unique to a particular item. So I thought that would probably be much more suitable for what I'm dealing with, because we do have unique pieces of jewelry. So maybe non-fungible tokens would probably be a better way of going forward. So that's I'm glad I didn't sort of develop stuff on the old model.
let me ask Stephan for his reaction to all of what you described there. Let's start at the beginning. Suki was talking about having her own MarketOrders token to start with. How does that integrate with UNISOT's way of thinking about these things?
We are doing the same thing. So we are developing a kind of, you could say, stable coin or a token internally in the system, so that everybody that are using our system can make payments back and forth.
But would your internal token be common to all of your customers in different supply chains, or would each customer like Suki and others have their own token?
No, it should be one token for every customer. So it should more or less be an exchange for fiat, for normal money. So have a token that is worth like €1, $1, or things like that.
Suki might be disappointed that she's not going to be able to not be having her own market orders token. How does that strike you, Suki?
So I guess with UNISOT, that road would probably be like blockchain as a service. So we could use Stephan's tech work to enable our processes, or we could go down the route of completely building something ourselves from the beginning. But I think at this stage, because we're still trying to figure things out, it would probably be a good use case to actually team up with what Stephan's doing and see if there is a case there. But then as a businesswoman, I'm also thinking about long term, the technology, as a tech company, it's really important that we do have processes that are in-house. And when you do have things that are in-house, longer term, it's going to be cheaper to run. Or if this is going to be a smaller part of our business and not as big, then it would make sense to outsource that. But I think there's pros and cons to both, and it really depends on where you are in your business and how big is this piece going to be.
Do you want to respond to that, Stephan?
Yeah, sure. So the reason why we do this now to have an internal token is because we don't want to have all the bank licenses and everything to have. If you create a global coin that everybody can use, you need a lot of bank licenses and stuff like that. And we are not planning to do that at this stage. But we see that there is a lot of other initiatives in the blockchain industry to make stable coins, and there are already a lot of different stable coins that you can use to do these payments back and forth. So what we are going to use it for internally, or are using already, is for micropayments. So for every action that you do in our system, you make a payment. But of course, you can also use that to make bigger payments, like a settlement for an order.
Yeah, Suki, you I think are more focused on the tracking. Well, I was going to say tracking and tracing, but of course that has different connotations these days. But you're focused on knowing exactly where an item is and that it is the genuine article. Are you interested at all in the possibilities of micropayments? In other words, people would be compensated for their actions along the supply chain, if I could put it like that.
That is a really interesting concept and something that I hadn't actually thought of. So thank you. It's got my brain sort of whirring. But kind of as a side note, so I'm also an author, and I've actually written another white paper about authors and blockchain. And I actually think micropayments would probably make more sense in that sort of environment. And I'll tell you why, because as an author, sometimes we don't always have the funds ready up front to pay for editorial services and cover design, which can be quite expensive. But what I have seen is some authors do smart contracts with their editors and cover designers and illustrators that basically say that every time I sell a copy of my book, a small micropayment of that sale is actually funneled out to like 5 different people. And this contract can actually stay as long as the contract is alive. So I think that would probably be a really interesting use case. You could even use that with musicians. Every time a song is sold or a royalty is split into multiple different micropayments.
Yeah, Stephan, just give us an idea in the fish supply chain. What kind of micropayments, who's being paid for what in your business?
Yeah, so we see the micropayments as a key function in this whole supply chain and tracking system. We call it product provenance system. And to incentivize all the actors in the supply chain, we now enable everybody to both buy and sell information. So that could mean that the company that are breeding the fish for a long time, they can now start selling information about that fish. They can give away some information, some basic information, but they can also sell small pieces of information to a producer that are going to make some other product out of that, or going to promote it to their customers. So we think it's very important to have this incentivizing system between all the actors in the supply chain to buy and sell information and to subscribe to information. Because the problem in supply chains today is that you only have information one tier up and one tier down, that you only have information from your immediate supplier and you give to your immediate customer, but you have no idea what happens before your supplier and your customer's customer. But by having this system, I could actually subscribe to information from my supplier if there is a delay or if they're changing something or stuff like that, so that I can get that information beforehand, before the package comes to my company and I see, oh, it has changed or it's delayed or something. With that information, I can now start planning and acting on things before they happened, and by that being more efficient.
Well, we're always hearing about how data is the new oil and all that stuff. And in a way, therefore, giving value to data as opposed to just helping tech giants helping themselves to it makes a lot of sense in that context, I think.
Absolutely, yes.
If I could actually just jump in, what Stephan said was just so spot on. So that's something that we also struggle with in our industry. So when we are trying to get products from the suppliers and sourcing it for the jewelry shops, the jewelers themselves don't actually know what the customers want. So what if you could have a system whereby the customer is willing to share some data, such as I prefer jewelry which is, it's got animals in it, or it's rose gold, or it's this or it's that, and then that information, when it's shared with the retailer, they have a better idea of what to actually source from the supplier. Because what we also find is in our industry, whenever we are bringing goods in and out the country, a large proportion of it has to be sent back because it just didn't sell. And we have to ask ourselves, why didn't this particular rose chain sell? Is it because the design is off, or is it because it was Chinese New Year instead and they preferred different things? So I think it is really good to actually incentivize all the actors along the chain to actually share that information, knowing that if I share this information, the service and the products I'm going to get are probably going to be better quality and more suited to me.
Well, let's just move on to the question that Suki raised about identifying individual objects and possibly embedding some kind of identifier in them, because it seems to me that's rather a key part of this whole debate, because you can have a beautiful blockchain which tells you exactly what's happened to everything at every step of the way, but if it's not securely related to the item in the real world, then obviously it doesn't really have a value. What were your thoughts, Stephan, on what Suki was saying about embedding, was it RFID?
Yeah, like smart sensors or chips.
Yeah, the chip into the jewelry. Is that something you're thinking of as well?
Yes, absolutely. It's amazing to see the development in this area, because just a couple of years ago, an RFID chip was like a big piece. But now we just saw last week on an exhibition here that you could just have a small string that you put into a logotype in your clothes, or it could be a very, very small dot only. So they can really be very, very small, and that sounds very interesting. How you can put that into jewelry in a way that they are not losing value or getting destroyed. I've seen some other things there where you just laser in a number or an ID that is more or less, you can only see it in a very big magnification, but you can still see it, and you can verify that diamond is that diamond and so on. So there is many way to do it, and even I've seen that you can now print RFID chips by just a printing technology. So that technology is just exploding at the moment. It's so interesting to follow what's possible there.
Is that something that's happening in the jewelry business anyway, Suki? Because it doesn't actually require blockchain for that to be useful, I suppose.
Yeah, so right now, from what I've seen, some jewelers are actually using micro lasers to laser on the underside of a diamond, specific barcodes or codes, so that it's not visible to the naked eye. So that is taking place. But what I haven't seen is other pieces, so like non-diamond. So how are you actually putting tags into metals, precious metals like silver and gold? And right now, the only way they're doing that is basically putting like these electronic tags on the item, and then it's taken off at the point of sale. So there isn't anything that I have seen where anything is actually being embedded into the actual item. Or the other thing that's being used very commonly is when you do purchase a piece of jewelry, you're given a certificate of provenance that proves that, or a hallmark from the assay office to prove that this is 22 or 24 karat gold. But I think that there is going to be a lot of people maybe thinking about how you could utilize these digital chips to basically replace the paper certificates. So as well as using blockchain for the chip to talk back to the blockchain to verify its provenance and where it is in the supply chain, maybe it could be used also as a digital certificate so that you can actually see exactly what's the components of this particular piece. And, you know, with the chips being in metal jewelry, like gold or silver, if at any point in time that particular item is melted down into scrap metal, then that would actually talk back to the blockchain and say, you know, it's like destroyed or there's no more information being encoded into it. So you would know that this piece no longer exists. So I think I haven't seen anything like that yet, which is what we're trying to basically develop.
So Suki, have you made any decisions about which blockchain or what kind of blockchain you think would be best for you? Because Stephan's obviously operating on the Bitcoin SV chain. Do you have thoughts about that?
Yeah, so we have decided to stick to Ethereum, mainly because it seems to be the one where a lot of people are already using it. It seems to be a stable blockchain. But when you did mention Bitcoin SV, Charles, I must admit I didn't know much about it. So I would actually love for Stephan to maybe explain why he's decided to go down that route. And, you know, who knows, I may change my mind.
This is where you earn your evangelism award, Stephan. It's an open door.
Oh my God!
Go for it.
No, so I can just tell me shortly about my background. So I've been working 20 years as an integration architect, integrating big ERP systems. So customers are communicating with the suppliers and customers and banks and so on. And for very long time, I saw the problem with exchanging data for companies. You have old technology like EDIs and so on. But so I was looking for a solution to have this global database, so this universal source of truth database somewhere. And then I read a Satoshi Nakamoto white paper about the Bitcoin and blockchain, and just blew my mind that, wow, here we have this global database that are perfect and working, very secure and so on. So I started building some proof of concept on that. But in the meanwhile, we realized that back in like 2016 and so on, that the transaction fee was too high, it was too slow and so on. So we looked at other solutions. And of course, we looked into Ethereum as well, that it was starting up at the time. There is a huge community in Ethereum. There is a lot of solutions out there, but none of them are in production. No one has actually been able to actually run this in production using all the functionality of the Ethereum blockchain, because it's simply not scaling. You can do like 10, 15 transactions per second, and it doesn't work for one company even. So the problem in Ethereum is that every company that are using Ethereum now is building second and third layer solutions on top of that to try to mitigate that it doesn't scale. So they have a blockchain somewhere down there, but they're actually building a solution up here solving all the problems. And maybe they send some some hash down to the blockchain sometimes.
So, Suki, is that a problem that you have been concerned about at all, or aware of?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest sort of things that people worry about with blockchain is definitely about the scalability aspect of it. So obviously, Bitcoin and Ethereum, they do have their limits. And I guess my sort of concern now, my concern is that as more people do join the network, which is great, maybe there would be a lot of pressure on it. So this is something that we would have to think about. But yeah, right now it's not something I'm trying to solve right now. But I think Stephan has.
Well, Stephan, I think you must look at the numbers that Stephan is talking about in terms of transactions per second, because I think inevitably, I mean, I'm not a technologist, but it seems to me that inevitably that's going to be an important factor. But I wanted to ask you both, there's been so much publicity about BTC Bitcoin and its rise in value in the last few weeks. I mean, Suki, you do some sort of outreach and ambassadorial roles in relation to entrepreneurship and blockchain in London. What do you think is the effect of all this publicity about the value of Bitcoin? Is that something that is helpful to entrepreneurs like yourself, or is it a distraction in terms of the effect that it has on public opinion, really?
So I think the advantage of all of this is that it's becoming more mainstream. So you are having more and more people actually becoming aware of what blockchain technology is and wanting to be a part of the conversation. And I think that if more people are working on it, it can only be a good thing.
It's just that what people are hearing about is just, oh gosh, it's gone up in value by 30% today, or it's gone down in value by 30%. I'm not sure that builds confidence. It may just make people just utterly bamboozled by the whole thing.
As an entrepreneur, I sort of wish people would focus more about the actual technology and how we can actually get it into production and get real life cases and how it can actually be used in more real world situations, rather than being utterly obsessed about, oh, Bitcoin's gone up, where can I buy Bitcoin because I want to make my millions? Like, no.
Well, what do you think, Stephan? I mean, when you are wanting to approach a business person about UNISOT, does all this publicity about the value of BTC help or not?
No, absolutely not. I think it's a big distraction, and it actually gets people to focus totally on the wrong thing, just on the speculation and so on, and that now Elon Musk or Tesla bought Bitcoin and so on, or BTC actually. So when we talk to businesses, we don't even mention about Bitcoin or Ethereum or anything like that. We are just talking about blockchain technology. And we really, really have to be careful at what time we are mentioning Bitcoin, and that we have first described everything, the possibilities and the good thing with blockchain, and then we can say, okay, but we are using the real original Bitcoin blockchain, not BTC, and then we have to tell them that it's not BTC and so on. But for my part, when I go out to customers, it's hindering me because the only thing they've seen and know about Bitcoin is the price up and down, and then they say, oh, we cannot use that thing because it's so unstable and so on. That's why we then have to say that we have our token that are stable, but it's built on the Bitcoin blockchain anyway. So it's actually the most secure blockchain that has been in production for over 12 years now and proven and never hacked.
Yeah, Suki, you do a lot of work with young people, and you're part of Women in Blockchain and various other groups like that. Do you have any moments like Stephan was describing where you need to describe what a great thing it can do, and then you sort of mutter, oh yes, it's actually the blockchain, and hope that doesn't put people off?
Yes, so I think like what Stephan said, the price volatility is a huge distraction, and my focus is always on the application of the technology. But having said that, I think there are still a lot of people who don't actually understand the difference between blockchain and cryptocurrencies. Sometimes they can confuse the two. And the reason I say that is because I was one of those people right at the start of my journey. I didn't know what the difference was. But once you do understand the difference, you do understand that blockchain is actually a technology, it's an application, it's a different way of doing something. And in my opinion, it's a far more trustworthy and efficient way to do a process that's already existing. So my focus is always on, the first thing I'll say is there is a difference between the two. Crypto assets or currencies are assets that are volatile and mainly focused on financial payments and transfers. But blockchain, the technology itself, can be applied in different ways, and it doesn't suffer from volatility like cryptocurrencies do. So I think there is an educational piece that needs to be done, and I hope to sort of help people with that when they ask me questions.
Right. And well, we should probably draw this to a close, but Suki, have we piqued your interest in the possibilities of Bitcoin SV, or at least in UNISOT and Stephan's way of applying the technology to virtually sort of any industry?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what Stephan's doing in the fish industry, I think there are so many more applications that could use what he's developed for sure. And it's definitely made me think about stable coins and other sort of, other blockchains I could potentially use. So yeah, I will be Googling Bitcoin SV and looking up more about it and understanding it. So yeah, thanks for, putting those ideas. It was great to have that conversation.
Thank you. Well, Stephan, what would be your parting words to Suki about how she should pursue her interest in this and find out more?
Yeah, I will recommend everybody, Suki and everybody, that if you want to build a company or build functionality on a system or a blockchain, you have to make sure that the technology that you're using is actually working for you, not only today as a proof of concept, but it actually works in 1, 2, or 3 years when you will have 1,000 or 10,000 or millions of transactions in your system. So you must have scalability. You just must have that. And you must have a system that is stable, because you don't want to rebuild your application or your whole system every 6 months when a couple of developers decides to put in a new function in your back-end system, like in the blockchain. And of course, as in every business, it has to be cost efficient. You cannot pay tens of dollars or hundreds of dollars per transactions in the system, because what you do then, you just end up building a system on top of that to mitigate the problems that you have in your lower blockchain layer. So just go and look. There is a very good wiki page for Bitcoin SV. There is a lot of videos. I have to recommend The Theory of Bitcoin, Ryan Charles on YouTube, Ryan Charles and Craig Stephen Wright, where they're actually talking about every detail about how it's not a cryptographic system, it's not a technical system, it's all an economic system. We're just taking cryptographic, we take a network, we take data science, we put it together in an economic incentivized system. And that is so super important to have this, to have a protocol that is economically incentivized, which means that this protocol will continue living forever. So even if our organization dies in 20 years or 50 years, the protocol will still continue living because it has its own internal economic incentive for anybody to keep running it, to make money in 100 years, in 200 years. And no other system has that.
That's the same with diamonds and gold and stuff as well. They'll be there in a few hundred years as well, we hope. Do you want a final word, Suki, in response to that?
I will look up those pages and sources and check it out. And yeah, for sure. Gold and diamonds, it's an industry, I think, that is as old as the dawn of civilization itself. So there are always going to be people wanting to buy and wear jewelry. And I think if we can bring greater levels of trust and transparency into that ecosystem, it can only be a good thing for everyone involved.
Brilliant. Well, Suki, Stephan, thank you both very much indeed. It's been really fun, and maybe something good will come out of it as well. So thanks a lot, and bye for now.
Thanks, it was a pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thanks very much to Sukhi Jutla and Stephan Nilsson. Now we know that diamonds are forever, and so is Bitcoin. Thanks for listening or watching the show, and please join me, Charles Miller, again next week for another CoinGeek conversation. Till then, goodbye.
We are delighted to present you with Bitcoin SV Academy as a source for your personal and professional development. Whether you are a student, developer, blockchain business professional, or digital currency enthusiast, you learn more about Bitcoin from our online courses. At the very core of everything we do at Bitcoin SV Academy are high-quality and comprehensive online courses focused on educating people correctly about the design of Bitcoin system and the power of its blockchain technology. We partner with technical experts and industry leaders to ensure courses are developed to academic standards. Our online courses focus on 3 subject streams: Bitcoin theory, Bitcoin development, and Bitcoin infrastructure. Let's take a quick look at each stream. Bitcoin theory covers the design of Bitcoin as a system, from the basis of the original Bitcoin white paper posted in 2008 by Satoshi Nakamoto, Bitcoin's pseudonymous creator. We'll examine how economic incentives drive the development of the network and build the hyperdense connectivity at its center. Bitcoin development focuses on providing up-to-date tools and techniques for application builders who want to use Bitcoin as a basis for their technology projects. Bitcoin infrastructure focuses on the machinery and mechanics of the network and ledger to explain how the network is built and massively scales. You start with the free Bitcoin introductory courses before diving deeper into each stream with intermediate and advanced courses. You will have the opportunity to earn a certification after completing each course. Our Bitcoin program allows you to adapt the curriculum to your life. You can learn at any time convenient for you. It's self-paced, so you can go as fast as you want or as slow as you need. Our learning platform creates an engaging and connected experience wherever you are in the world. So if you're ready to acquire new knowledge about Bitcoin blockchain technology and learn transformative ideas to power your professional performance and business, join us online at Bitcoin SV Academy.